Hey, how goes it? Ken Bozak here to talk about cryptocurrencies and cryptocurrency accessories. And today, joining me is a mentor of mine, an instructor of mine. I took courses from you, Nick Walter, a Udemy instructor, how to make a freaking iPhone app. And of course, I have made a freaking iPhone app thanks to you. So thanks for joining me on the show. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, Nick or Rick, if that is your real name, and let people know who you are and how you got into Bitcoin and what you do now in the industry.
Sure. So yeah, my name's Nick Walter, and like Ken said, I teach programming online, and so one of my biggest courses is a course called How to Make a Freaking iPhone App. I try to bring a little bit of fun to programming, which can be a pretty boring subject sometimes. So anyways, that's how Ken and I met. And as far as how I got into Bitcoin, it was originally my old man back in 2013. He's definitely a nerd, and he's
That's
always up on
awesome.
things before I am, which is kind of humbling because I'm in like the tech space. But I just remember him saying, "Oh, have you heard about this Bitcoin thing? It's like this cool decentralized money." And I was like, I have no idea what you're talking about, but it sounds cool. And so he was showing me stuff, and um, I actually remember the coolest. Like looking back now, this was the coolest thing. But one day, I was talking with my dad, and he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna go buy some Bitcoin today." And I was like, "How do you buy Bitcoin?" He's like, "Well, I met this guy online, and I'm gonna go buy Bitcoin from him." And I was like, "What? Like, who is it?" And he's like, "Oh, his user's name's Symbols." I was like, "Where you guys meet?" And he's like, "Oh, at the McDonald's downtown." I'm like, "You're taking $1,000 downtown to a McDonald's to go buy
Yes.
internet money from a stranger? Like, what the crap?" He's like, "Oh yeah." And so he comes back. He's like, "It was great. While we were waiting for the confirmations, we got ice cream cones." And so, anyways, it was my dad that originally got me into this. But yeah,
Dude,
that's me.
that is so awesome. And what you're doing now is you're creating courses for beginners. You have over 20 courses on your Udemy with over 70,000 students altogether. What is it like being an online instructor?
It's fun. I mean, basically, what I try and do is take complex topics and break them down, make them fun for people to understand. Because, for example, like with the iPhone course, making an iPhone app is like an absolute thrill. When things are working, when you like get your app finished and like it's, pulling down data from the internet, whatever, like it's cool. But the steps to get there can be incredibly frustrating. So that's where I try and sort of fill in the pieces. And same thing with crypto. So I just released my first crypto course, and I'm kind of aiming to get people a little bit deeper than sort of the surface level stuff, because deep down, like the blockchain technology and stuff like that is super interesting. It can be really intimidating at first, but there's some pretty basic things that you can go through that when you kind of see it, it's like, oh, so this is why it's cool. And it kind of, you know, brings a lot more sort of appreciation to these cryptocurrencies and like why it's so game changing.
Now you definitely do have like a unique way of educating. Before I ran into your course, I signed up for multiple courses on how to learn, how to use apps and how to use programs to create iOS apps. And I've done Android apps before, but iOS, it was just frustrating and people were a little monotone. And then I came across your videos and it was like party video after like, cutscene video. And I was like, like I'm so frustrated because like you said, it's great when things are working, but when you're learning, it's really frustrating. And then those cutscenes that you added in were like so useful. Like I know it was just for entertainment, but it was like really there to get you back and really get back to the code. And it was awesome the way you went about, educating. And you do have a unique unique way of doing it. So can you elaborate on your process of creating courses and how that goes, like vetting the information and stuff like that?
Sure. So it's basically I before I film anything, for example, if I'm going to teach someone how to make an app, I'll go and make that app myself. And the real mode that I try and get in is like if I was doing this for the very first time, like what things would I be looking for? And sometimes like for example, if I make a topic on like Bitcoin, like I before I made my Bitcoin course, like I really dived into Bitcoin, like had a general idea about how it worked, but when I sort of dug deeper, there was a whole lot of things that I had like questions on and stuff. So then when I was teaching, like I had that frame of mind of like what it was to be a beginner. So I was able to sort of address those questions that I'm sure a lot of people have. But for me, that's kind of the big key is knowing what it is that what's going through someone's mind when they're doing something for the first time. And if I can figure out that mindset, I think I can help get them there.
And speaking out that mindset, what inspired you to even start the or create the Bitcoin course on Udemy? You went from all the other courses to this is a little different. What inspired it?
Uh, Mostly just kind of my interest because a lot of my students on Udemy, out of that 70,000, I think I maybe got like 200 or so to sign up for my Bitcoin course. So there wasn't like a huge amount of interest, because a lot of my students are, there mostly for the programming stuff. But I mean, I just love cryptocurrency things like Ethereum. I've been looking into dApps recently, and I just think it's fascinating. So my hope was that I could introduce some of my students to this new world. And, if anyone else out there interested in crypto, I know it's a growing space. So I thought, well, this might be an opportunity to get some new students and sort of see if I can't build a little bit of, some students who are into crypto.
Awesome. And now you live in Japan. That's pretty freaking awesome. Since living in Japan, can you tell us, is Bitcoin as popular and widely adopted as we here in the US wish and hope to believe it is?
So straight up, I had heard some amazing stories about Tokyo that it's like, if you've got a wallet, you've got access to everything. As not the case. But that being said, I mean, the big train station in downtown Tokyo, Shibuya, when you walk out, I mean, it's kind of like Times Square in New York. Like they've got all these huge billboards. Like one of the biggest is for this Bitcoin exchange in Japan. I think it was like DMM or something like that. But so, I mean, it's definitely there. Like when I went around for like money exchange places, Bitcoin's listed as a ton of places like give us Bitcoin, we'll give you yen kind of situation.
Cool.
And there's this kind of subculture that I'm finding here of people who are really into Bitcoin Cash. So there seems to be a lot of people in Japan that just were in love with the idea of like this currency that could be used for buying goods, sending to friends and stuff. And so when Bitcoin Cash did their whole fork and, really focused on getting those transaction fees down, I mean, the people here have just loved it. And so I went to like a little meetup for Bitcoin Cash, and that was my first time I actually ever spent some Bitcoin Cash. I like had to, transfer some from Bitcoin there. And then, like I set up a wallet on my device and stuff. But man, there's some people here just preaching the gospel, like, man, it's back like 2014, like I'm sending transactions for like fractions of a yen and all stuff. So I'd say I moved from Utah, in which, and not even a big city in Utah, so no one was using crypto where I was at. So now being in Tokyo, it's night and day, but it's still not, I guess, sort of the utopia I had imagined it might be.
Well, you said you used Bitcoin Cash for the first time. Have you used Bitcoin or any crypto to buy goods or services online or in person?
Not much. I mean, I have definitely done like some online things. In fact, the first time I had bought Bitcoin was because there was this fundraising project that was accepting crypto, and I just thought, oh, that's cool. So like I went and bought a Bitcoin. This was back when it was like $200, and I bought it to send some money to this thing. And it was so funny. Like, so I love that Bitcoin's shooting up in value, but I've never like made money when I've tried to make money. It's like when I do these like nerdy tech things and I look up 2 years later and it's like, whoa, what the crap? Like that's worth money now. Same thing with like Ethereum. I bought Ethereum, not a ton, but like some, when it was like $10 because I wanted to like, there was this dApp that lets you upload an image to the blockchain. I'm like, that's dope. I want to do that. So I bought some Ethereum, and then I look up and it's like, geez, this thing's like, I wish I could go back in time, but it's like every time I've tried to like make money in crypto, that's when I lose money. So
you gotta take one for the team. Tell us when you're selling so we know when to buy,
Exactly.
There's always that one guy in the group that's like, all right, everybody, I gotta sell. Get ready for this spike.
Yeah,
That is
don't take any of
awesome.
my courses for trading stuff. That's not my specialty.
Well, you said that you were looking into Ethereum smart contracts, and you've made a freaking iPhone app. What about a freaking smart contract or a freaking dApp, man? Like, what are you working on there?
Uh so I have a big project, my grand scheme, which is under wraps, so I unfortunately can't reveal it. But I've been working on kind of like some little smaller things, mostly just like demos and tutorials, because yeah, I mean it's interesting that like uh for example, when I made the how to make a freaking iPhone app course, I made it because I felt like Apple's documentation, other stuff out there, just like wasn't all that helpful to get someone up and running. Because I thought, Apple didn't do a very good job of explaining how to make apps. Well, dApps right now, it is awful. I mean, because this space is so young, I mean, there is hardly any documentation, and anything that's out there is incredibly complex. So, like, I myself am having a really hard time sort of like breaking this down and figuring out how things work. So, I hope to eventually one day, yeah, make something like how to make a freaking dApp, because the idea is cool, right? You can write some code, throw it into this blockchain, and like whether you want to or anyone else wants to, like you can't take it off there. It's there until the end of the
Yeah.
time. People may not care about it and like never interact with it or anything, but it's like once it's up there, it is up there. And like that idea, I just think is so cool. But yeah, I'm hitting some big roadblocks because what? Yeah, one, there's not a ton of documentation, but two, things are changing so quickly that you're going through some tutorial like that was from 6 months ago. And it's like, oh well, the code
Mm,
base has changed and we're not
yes.
rolling that way anymore. And it's like it's a lot to keep up with.
Yeah. So, what are some of the the most frequently asked questions you get from your students about Bitcoin? See if we can try to knock some of those out for the people watching today.
Uh, I'd say the biggest one is just I guess I've seen this more sort of in person from family and friends is that uh, the concept that Bitcoin is not like some company or corporation. Like everyone always asks, like, well, who's the CEO of Bitcoin? Or,
Yeah.
like who stores the Bitcoin? Like, where are they and stuff like that? And it's like, no, like it's just sort of this thing that's out there and that everybody participating is what keeps it alive and stuff. So I guess that decentralized idea is kind of hard to communicate. Um, I'd say another sort of common question that I get is with Bitcoin that you can, whenever you send Bitcoin, you can send fractions of Bitcoin. I mean, anyone that's worked with it, you're going to be like, well, duh. But I can't tell you how many people are new to it that are like, oh, I can't buy any Bitcoin. It's like 10 grand. Like,
Right. They have
so
this
in
stock
fact,
mentality.
exactly. It was funny. My brother, he wanted to get into crypto, and I was like, "Oh, you should, use Coinbase. It's pretty easy to set up. That I think that's a good way to like get started." And he was like, and then he texted me. He's like, "Hey, I bought some Litecoin." I was like, "Oh, cool. Why'd you do that?" He's like, "Oh, I couldn't afford any of the other ones." And I was like, "Well, it's not how it works, man. But hey, I'm glad you're into it. So,
Yes.
you know,
Yeah, that actually, you bring that up. That's something I'm asked a lot. A lot of people ask, what's a cheaper coin that I should invest in and why? And I'm like, well, Litecoin. And because of that, common misconception when people open up Coinbase, they're going to see a cheaper option, and that is the cheapest option. So that's a good alternative. I'm pretty big on Litecoin. I got me my Litecoin tattoo, my Bitcoin tattoo. I got Dash and Decred. I got a couple crypto
dude, if that
tattoos,
isn't
man.
proof, I don't know what is."
It's proof of ink right there. We were talking about Bitcoin and Ethereum, and now Bitcoin is to Ethereum as gold is to oil. Could you elaborate on that a little bit? Because I know a lot of people get them confused. One is a currency, and one has a use case for the dApps, and like oil has use cases for many things.
Yeah. So, right. So Bitcoin, basically, right, you can send money back and forth to people. So it's kind of if you're trying to pay for something or a lot of people say, like the store of value, kind of like gold. It's like, hey, I just, want to have this money because I don't trust the dollar, or not even if you don't trust it, you want to be like diversified, whatever it is, you can use it as a store of value. So with Ethereum, there's also the store of value, but I think the bigger thing is that it's uh, this pro. Essentially, think of the greatest way I've heard Ethereum explained is that it's one big decentralized computer that's nobody is in charge of and no one can shut down. And so what's so cool about that is you can write code for this blockchain, this big decentralized computer,
Mm-hmm.
and no one can touch it. And so I heard a really great story. You had sort of, I think, introduced this to me, if I remember correctly, but there was this insurance company for flight insurance, right? Like if to make sure that your flight doesn't get delayed. If it's like over 2 hours delayed, then the company will refund you the price of the flight, but you have to pay like $20 to do that. So anyways, that's existed before, but it's usually when your flight is delayed, you have to send a report, say like this is what happened, then someone will check it, and then maybe a couple weeks later, there's going to be money that comes into your account. Well, some insurance company set up on Ethereum a contract, basically some code that when you get insurance, like the code will check when your flight was, and then 2 hours after that, and say, did the flight take off? It looks at a flight database, and if the flight didn't take off, they instantly send you the Ethereum amount of how much you paid for your ticket. And so that whole process of I'm going to submit this claim to the insurance company, and then someone there is going to check it, make sure that that's actually when the flight didn't take off, and then they're going to start this wire transfer to your bank account. Like that is all cut off, and it's all here on this Ethereum blockchain, and it's sort of like written in stone. So like you know for sure that you're going to get your money back. Like there's no worry that you're going to get stuck up in claims
Mm-hmm.
or the company is going to run out of money, whatever, right? Like it's just all there. So I think it makes it, I don't know. I just think that's a really cool example, and maybe that was too specific, but basically Ethereum, you can program it, you can create some things. So, I mean, if we go back to the oil example, right, like to make
Mm-hmm.
cars run, planes fly, whatever it is, like it's sort of this juice that enables things to happen. And yeah, Ethereum sort of helps facilitate. I think the biggest thing that it does is sort of automate processes, for example, like in that insurance company, right? So it sort of cuts out this guy doing this mundane work that's like,
Right.
hey, we should
It
have
acts
computers do
faster.
that. Yeah.
And
So
it's less likely to have human error. Human error is always a problem. Contracts on the internet that are smart trigger based off of if this then that event. It can make things move faster, and it's a lot cheaper. I mean, imagine all the people that have to stamp and red tape things and just to get you your refund. Now it just happens. That's what smart contracts
well,
to
yeah,
me are all about. Like I'm looking at that replacing like lawyers, replacing even point of sale systems and payroll departments. I clock in, I clock out, I
mm,
get my pay because the contract triggers it.
right, yeah.
That'd be cool.
Which would be great, right? Like, I mean, who hasn't started some sketchy summer job that it's been like 3 weeks in and homeboy still hasn't paid you yet, and you're just like,
Right.
come on, let's make this happen, right? Like if that was
Oh, we
on the
lost your
blockchain,
first week's time card and we never got your first week's back pay, so that's
yeah.
funny.
I do want to touch on real quick is just that you were talking about the human error thing. So there is human error, but that also applies to Ethereum, right? So
Mm-hmm.
it's a little bit scary that when you write code and put it out there, it's there until the end of the time. And
It's
if
gonna
you
be
made a
good.
mistake, you can't just recall the code back, right? So that was the big situation with the DAO, right? And
Right.
Ethereum is that
Yeah,
someone had the
human
bug,
error.
some guy found it, and it's like, hey, you guys made a mistake. This money belongs to me, and that, led to the fork or whatever. But and just this is going to get a little bit of nerdy real quick here, but in learning about these like dApps and stuff, I was asking someone like, hey, so if I want to change the code for a dApp, like, can I do that? And basically, this guy who was teaching me about this had said, if you have like a URL that's pointing to your code base that's on the Ethereum blockchain, like you can essentially, what happens if you ever need to update your code, you essentially write a whole new contract that goes up to the blockchain, and you just have your URL, your website point to that new one. So it's technically you can't change your code on Ethereum, but you can create a whole new set of code, a new contract, and sort of point
Yeah, you're
your
forking.
website.
Yeah.
Right. So, anyways, that was something that I had always wondered is like, can you change the code? No, technically you can't, but you can sort of change the flow of traffic to your new direction. I mean, there will be some issues, right? Like if you were like that insurance company, you had written some bad code and now you need to send it somewhere else. There might have been some contracts that went bad or whatever, right? And you're going to suffer the consequences there. But, it's kind of wherever you point to the new place, you can
Hmm.
have that work.
No, good point. Good point. Speaking of these currencies and going up in going up in value, what is one of your favorite software wallets or hardware wallets, and how do you secure your crypto? Don't get too into detail.
Well, so from a nerdy perspective, I love the little backup seeds that you make whenever you create a new wallet, right? The 16 words that you use, like when you're making a new wallet, it's like,
Hmm.
okay, write down these 16 words and you can always regenerate your wallet. Uh, so what's really interesting about that is that actually there's like a list of, I believe it's like 1,000 words, and you can see it up on GitHub. But whenever you create a backup seed, essentially each of those words links back to a number. So actually, if you wanted to, with those wallets, whenever they say create a backup seed, you actually, if you knew the number behind it, you could just say like 8, 14, 7, 6. But I mean, the reason that there's words there is because those are harder
Mm.
to mess up or whatever. Um, but the other thing with that too is that like you can now use other languages for those backup seeds because they just have to eventually turn back to those numbers. Anyways, I'm getting too much
That is pretty
into that, but I
cool.
love the seeds. Yeah, I think it's amazing that you can just go look up and see, the word eggs actually is the number 46 in this backup process. But um, yeah, so I love the idea of that, creating these like backup seeds, the quote unquote paper wallet. Like for me, when I'm storing, if I just want to have some coin that I'm holding on to for a long time, not going to be exchanging, that's what I like. And outside of that, Ecelium is something that I use on like my phone. And but like for a majority, I use Coinbase, and like I'm slightly embarrassed of that because it's, yeah, look at Ken, he's got his eyes down, but right, like, because it's very large, very sort of quote unquote centralized,
Yes.
especially in a decentralized world. Uh, but I just love the ease of use for that.
It is
So if I'm
easy.
doing like some like transacting, I'm usually, yeah, using Ecelium, but yeah, Coinbase
Coinbase
for
doesn't let
all
you
other
get
things.
your private keys or your seed key phrase. So if Coinbase were to get shut down or servers frozen or servers seized by any government entity, unfortunately, any money in your Coinbase account would be the government's or Coinbase's. Which is kind of why I recommend hardware wallets. I would definitely check out cryptohwwallet.com. They got ledger wallets, treasure wallets, keep keys, digital bitbox. They got all these things that are awesome. I even just got one of these things. This is a open dime for Litecoin. So I can load Litecoin up to
So
this,
cool.
and the only way to get the Litecoin off is to basically break it and expose the private keys. That way I know it's been tampered and I can't. A lot of people like to use like paper wallets and stuff, but I would only use you can withdraw a little bit off of a paper wallet every time you want, but once you expose the private key to any software wallet, it's compromised. So I like hardware
True.
wallets for sure, and something like this is pretty damn cool. But yeah, dude, I think Mycelium is pretty neat. Definitely check out Edge. They're brand new. They just came out a couple days ago. They rebranded from Airbits. It's Edge Secure or Edge Wallet. They're on both Play
Hmm.
stores. And you can actually carry ERC20 tokens for your smart contracts on your software wallet phone. All of them. Any ERC20 token you want, you can have on your
Wow.
phone. Yeah, so you could create your own ERC20 token just for fun and give them to your students, and they could be worth like one, Nick coin could be worth 1 hour of your time, one on one, and you give them out, and they have to give them back to
Hey,
you.
there we go.
You buy back your ERC20 token with 1 hour of your time. So now it has a value of 1 hour of your time, and you also charge $200 for an hour of your time. So now the coin might be worth, $200 or a little bit less because somebody might want to buy a couple of those coins to get a couple hours of your time for less than giving you cash. See, dude, my brain just goes running when it comes to these smart contracts and ERC20 tokens and just the way of
Yeah,
we can
dude.
be our own bank, we can be our own business, we can be our own everything. We don't need any centralized authorities with just a little bit of code. That's what got me so excited for crypto. You know, have you thought about creating a freaking crypto iPhone app, something for the cryptocurrency users out there?
Uh, so not recently, no, but I will say back in 2013 when my dad was getting me into this, when I was trying to figure out mining and all that, I actually created a miner iPhone app.
Oh,
So it
that's
would
dope.
mine. It's dope, but so the technical stuff of it, so fun, but in practical use,
Oh yeah, totally not
if
going to
you
be
hit
worth for anything.
if you hit start, yeah, so one, it made zero money. But
Right.
two, the second you hit start on this app, the phone within 2 minutes is like burning hot because it is just running the inside of that thing. And like I never ran it for more than 5 minutes because I always thought it would destroy
That's
my
so
iPhone.
awesome
But
though.
that's the only experience I have
Suicide
is
by
I made,
crypto mining. You just let it run until it's done.
yeah, it was crazy. And
That
like
would be
who
cool
even knows
though.
if I actually got the thing up and running the correct way? Because right, I never ran it for more than 4 minutes. But that, I mean, so it was cool because I was able to learn a lot about mining from that, but
Well,
terrible
there's a
use
lot of
case.
those apps that are coming out where you watch a couple videos and they give you some satoshis, or you play the game and you get past a level, you watch an ad and you can earn some crypto. So it may be worth something
Mm.
to get interested in, man, and get looking into creating like a even like a simple quiz game, like 1,000 crypto questions, and as you get them right, you can build up some satoshis or something, and you can only cash them out once you get them all right. I don't fucking know, but it would be cool to see you
Uh,
have a crypto app out there, and a lot of them are kind of where you use ad revenue and then you share it via like satoshis with the people who play the game. So that's pretty cool. And then there's
well,
other
one
ones.
well, one thing that I'd love to see, which I'm still sort of again diving into this, is like getting dApps onto a phone.
Oh,
Uh,
that would be
right?
dope. Yes.
Yeah, there's a couple of issues there because like it seems like the most common way people are working with these dApps is like they've got the MetaMask
Mm-hmm.
extension in their browser, right? And that does not work very well on mobile, if at all. But then I mean, there's like Mist, for example, and I can't remember if Mist has a mobile thing, but I think maybe that's what it's going to take to eventually get that there. But I always wonder, like, is there going to be at some point a way to almost make native code yet still work with the dApp? I mean, that's going to be
Hmm.
tough in a place like the Apple ecosystem where you have to
Oh
submit your
yeah.
apps to Apple and they have to approve it, and that sort of cuts out all the decentralization stuff. Um,
Well, now
but
at
yeah,
this
that's
point, you can download third-party apps on iPhones. They easily let you, so you just have to host it on your own website or something. You won't be on the Apple App Store.
right, right. So, no, that's a good point. Yeah, I think that'll be interesting to see if you
Dude, that
can't
would be
get a
hella
dApp up and running on
interesting.
mobile.
I would love to see CryptoKitties DApp on my phone. That's when I know crypto's mainstream. When I can get the CryptoKitties DApp on my phone and breed CryptoKitties and trade my little offspring for other CryptoKitties all on my mobile device. That's when we're like past the moon to me. Like that's mainstream adoption right there.
Yeah, yeah, preach
Speaking
it.
of mainstream, man, your wife is a crypto tax consultant, man. That's pretty cool. I'm actually looking forward to interviewing her. What is one of the more important things that you have learned about cryptocurrencies and taxes?
So the biggest one, so this one, I was very unfortunate to learn this, but this is the situation which just kind of stinks, but here it is. So if you're a US citizen, anytime you trade one cryptocurrency for another, that's a quote unquote taxable event, which means,
Sucks.
if, yeah, so, right, like I buy Bitcoin at $100 and then I trade it for Ethereum. And when I trade it for Ethereum, Bitcoin is $110. Well, I have to mark down that I had a $10 gain whenever I made that switch. Or if it's down to $90, it's like, oh, I lost $10. Like, so it's not like every time you make a trade, you have to pay taxes right then, but it's like in a year, you've got to keep track of that. So I had always thought once you buy with fiat, you can move throughout all the cryptos, whatever you want. And then when you come back out to fiat, that's when you owe taxes. But the rule is like the technical rule is that anytime you move from one to the other, you're supposed to mark that event and realize, okay, when I bought it, it was this much, it was this much, uh, which is just like a real buzzkill
It
for,
is.
especially if you're going to try and buy goods and services, right? Like essentially, then if you want to be 100% compliant, you're have to tell the government essentially everything that you bought and at what price, right? And like it just seems like the complete opposite of what this whole thing was meant for. But for example, Wyoming just passed the rule that they're treating cryptocurrency as a currency, which
Mm.
means they only care when you go in with fiat and then come back out with fiat, which to me that seems very reasonable as far as like taxation goes. But because so here's the example that I just makes me feel like this, right? So let's say I go to Japan and I buy 100 yen and that costs me $1. And while I'm in Japan, the price of yen or skyrockets, right? Or the dollar skyrockets, whatever. And now it's worth like 200 or well, my 100 yen is now worth $2. Like if I go spend that 200 yen, I don't owe taxes because all of a sudden the dollar went up in value, right? Or
Mm-hmm.
the yen went up in value. So it seems ridiculous to me if I buy Bitcoin and then I use my Bitcoin to buy some food, drink, whatever it is, rent. Uh, I don't feel like I should owe money on that. It's like, well, the
Right.
currency I bought's worth more. The government doesn't tax you on other currencies when it does that. So,
It's weird, and especially when you even
anyways,
look at it like property, it freaks me out because like, what if I have a bunch of chickens and my chickens are worth like two chickens to a ham? I give you two chickens, you give me a ham. Does the IRS come in and take a third of our chicken and a third of our ham and say, okay, guys, enjoy dinner? And what if my chickens are laying eggs and I collected 12 dividends and I took those 12 dividends and I got some ham? Do I have to give them some of my ham and some of my eggs? Like what is happening here? So yeah, man, I'm definitely interested in how they're going to go forward with this because to me, from all the times I've spoken with people in taxes and crypto, it sounds like a lot of voluntary compliance, and I choose to not voluntarily comply. But if they want to do all the homework for me, like you said, dude, they want me to do way too much work. How much here, how much there, what you buy, what you I literally don't have the time in my day. Plus, there isn't like any professional I could like hire with the amount of money I own to do all that work in a reasonable manner. So it's like not cost efficient in any direction. I think eventually taxes as we know it won't exist because they weren't always around. They didn't always exist, and I think that it would be interesting to see the IRS join the miners. Like I always like to talk about that. Like, what if the IRS was like a giant mining operation, right? And they would just get the transaction fee. Every time you want to send Bitcoin, they get a transaction fee. There's nothing you can do about it. They get it. And they get the miner reward. So there goes their tax. Like, there's nothing we can do about it. They're always going to make money if we keep using this cryptocurrency. So, like, I hope that's the direction they go. Because if not, I feel like the IRS could go the way of Blockbuster. Like, I know it sounds weird, sounds so far fetched, but so is saying that Blockbuster won't always be around back when they had VHS on the wall. For
yeah,
sure.
amen, dude. And yeah, little libertarian side of me is just absolutely cheering for that because yeah, I mean that's like you said. I hope that this kind of crypto situation just I mean, the way that it's growing and the whole number of coins out there, and especially the privacy coins that you can't even track
Hmm.
who has what, I really hope at one point just makes it so that it's like, oh, we can't look at what every single person is doing with their personal property. Maybe we should do a different system.
Yep.
And, it like, because like you said, I don't think the change can come from everyone saying, let's stop
Mm.
doing this IRS
Oh
taxes
yeah,
thing, right?
dude.
But
From
if you sort of,
prohibition to liquor license, look where we come.
yeah, I just, amen to all that. So hope there's some big change there. But
Dude,
in the meantime, you know, I'm on the side of you got to be compliant, especially married to a tax accountant. That's definitely my position. And so if you guys ever do need some help, my wife, she's $50 for 30 minutes. She'll get
oh
you squared
wow,
away.
I
And
definitely need to sit with her for 30 minutes.
yeah,
Ah,
I mean, we're not trying to charge an arm and a leg because I mean, it's essentially she'll get you up to speed on what you need if you bring your transactions, whatever can kind of get you pointed the right way. But
awesome.
uh, Yeah.
That is
Anyways,
so
dude,
awesome.
that's
So this has
exciting.
been great,
I
man.
love those talks.
What's next for Nick Walter and the Udemy instructor, man? What do you what's next for you? And tell the audience where they can find you and get all your stuff.
So if you ever want to learn something technical, I'd love for you to check out my courses. If you just go to Udemy and search Nick Walter, you can find that. I will say, quick anecdote. I go by Rick during the summers. So I don't know if you remember Kim saying at the beginning, Nick or Rick. So during the summer, I go by Rick. It's my summer name. But also, you can find me on Twitter. My Twitter handle is Nick Chuck Walter. Um, and yeah, that's me. I'm gonna have to, when I finish my big secret DApp that I've been working on. I'll have to get you to tweet out the link so your followers can see it. But it's gonna be a fun one.
Oh man, I'm excited, guys. All right, so to wrap things up, man, we're gonna do a zero point 0.1 Litecoin giveaway. I have a contest here. Let's see. We got one winner coming up for a zero point 0.1 Litecoin. Let's see who it is.
This is so cool.
Roberto Salamain, you won, brother. I'm going to send you an email, and all you have to do is reply with your Litecoin address. I will send you zero point 0.1 Litecoin directly to that address via email. Do not email me. I will email you. All right, guys, thank you so much, man. Thanks, Nick, for coming on the show, man. I really appreciate you taking the time to come on. Guys, the links are in the description box below. You can check them out on Twitter. There is a link in the description box below to join Udemy and get the course for $9.99. Drop it, get it while it's hot because it will be going up shortly. You want to get in now. And thank you. Don't forget to click subscribe, flick that alert bell, hit thumbs up, and thanks again, Nick.
Yeah, thank you.
Have a day.